Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Brendan and welcome back to the channel. If you guys are new here, it's great to have you. And today I'm going to be talking about Bitcoin because Bitcoin is something that I think has a lot of upside potential, especially where it's at right now. And I think the chart is pretty self-obvious of that. And when I say the chart, I'm talking about the candle chart, the indicators, the oscillators, and everything in between. And if that doesn't make sense, I promise I'm going to try to do my best to explain all of this in today's video. So in order to understand any of this, we have to look at Bitcoin from a little bit more of a macro perspective. And when I say macro, I'm talking about the 4-hour chart and the 1-day chart because I think that is something that really does the job better than a 1-hour or a 5-minute chart. I think you're going to get a little bit too zoomed in on that and look at a little bit more of a day trading perspective. But when we're looking at the 4-hour and the 1-day chart, we're going to zoom out and get things at a little bit more of a macro perspective. So with that being said, guys, this is not a day trade. This is not a margin trade. I'm not doing a leverage trade for this. This isn't even something that I think is going to happen today or tomorrow or even in the next week. This is a little bit more of a large scale play, and this is talking about the macro of Bitcoin. And I don't even think that this will start even coming into fruition until at least a month at minimum, and really, I guess, occur with the months to follow that. So this isn't something that's going to happen overnight, and I want to make that very transparent and clear now. But let's talk about the macro of Bitcoin and explain the situation of where we've been at, where we are, and where I think that we could very well be going. So in order to do this, let's just talk about the candle charts first things first here. So with the candle chart happening, we had this bottom on Bitcoin at 3.1K at the very end of 2018. And in early 2020, we had almost $1,000 higher swing low where Bitcoin came up to, really bottomed at about 4.1K. Now this, again, a very, I think, textbook and obvious higher swing low on Bitcoin. And I think we're starting to squeeze and move our way back towards the upside. Now, let's get all the little bearish bits out because I know that there's people seeing something on this chart that is definitely on here, but I have not talked about yet. Now, what I mean by this is, yes, we do have a little bit of a descending triangle. If you caught this, great eye for you, but I want to go ahead and explain this situation right now because this guy, while it is a descending triangle right in here, if we can grab it, is really nothing on the macro of Bitcoin. When we zoom out, this is still on a 4-hour. When we zoom out, this is nothing but a little blip on the chart. So I want to talk about this little bearish zone that Bitcoin could have before we talk about all the Bitcoin potential to the upside that I think it will have. So of course, yes, there is, I think, a little bit of a descending triangle in here. And what this does is actually create a zone on Bitcoin where I think that anywhere, I guess, in this, I don't want to call this like a dead zone, but anywhere in here, Bitcoin really has potential to float around and still set a higher swing low, still be extremely bullish. But it does have this area where it could, fall to and still be bullish. Now, what I mean by that is this could obviously break down and set another higher swing low. So one of the greatest testaments to the strength of Bitcoin and where it's at right now was Bitcoin came, if we move this back to a daily perspective, Bitcoin came over here. We'll go ahead and delete this descending triangle too, now that we've gotten all the bearish stuff out of the way. After Bitcoin had this higher swing low, almost a year and a half later, it had a 100% retracement to the previous high. So not only did we set this higher swing low, we retraced immediately back up to the previous swing high from where it initially dumped from, before even seeing any kind of resistance. That is not a dead cat bounce. That is a sign that there is a ton of buyers. You don't have 100, maybe if it was a 618 or a 50% retracement or a 30% retracement, you could argue that this was a dead cat bounce. But the fact that it retraced 100% back to the previous swing high, again, shows me that there is a lot of buying pressure down here and that this guy's, again, just getting ready to bounce towards the downside here, seeing its first rejection in $6,000 before it even went anywhere. So I think that is a great testament to the strength of Bitcoin and where it's at right now. And even if Bitcoin were to come down into this range, that's why I wouldn't be really concerned that much at all. So let's go ahead and talk about this because the MACD, I think right here, is painting a beautiful picture of what I'm seeing as just consistent bullish divergence. And even when I'm zooming out over here on these indicators, I think that this thing is just winding up, for another massive move to the upside. When I say the indicators, for those of you guys who don't know what I mean these little bands, that are happening over in here. I think that this guy is very well going to settle out with the MACD showing the triple bullish divergence. I think this guy's going to round up as well, and I think we're going to start seeing this guy shoot towards the upside, which I'll explain a little bit more from looking at this on an RSI's perspective. Now, when we're looking at the daily for the MACD and the RSI, these again are months. These are not things that are going to happen overnight. You're not going to see that MACD and RSI just turn bullish by the end of this week. And I want to make sure I explain that very clearly, very well right now. So when I'm looking at Bitcoin over in here, obviously it's floating more towards this oversold territory, but I think that that is perfect because what this allows this guy to do is this hasn't had any true bounce since it saw the initial rejection from like 10K, I think it was at, from that initial bounce. It hasn't gone anywhere here. In my mind, I'm seeing this as an accumulation zone where, again, this is creating pressure towards the upside, which I'll explain once we get to the 4-hour time scale. But I see this kind of dribbling down and fading out and fading out and fading out until this ultimately explodes back towards the upside over in here, which is something that I definitely think is going to happen. Now, if we look at this from a 4 hours perspective, I think we're going to see this, again, a whole lot better. And what I mean by this is we can go ahead and draw this guy in here. And I'm not drawing a trend line, but I am trying to show you guys the patterns of what I think is happening behind the scenes. We have higher swing or lower swing high, lower swing high, lower swing high, lower swing high, consistently holding this level. And what I see this has essentially happening is we're squeezing. The bears are only going to have so much, and then the bears are going to break. And when the bears break, I think this is exactly what's going to happen. The relative strength index, the price action, the candle chart of Bitcoin, I think all of it is going to start breaking out and going up. And once we see this actually start happening on the candle chart, we can look at this zone and see that once this 10K area breaks on Bitcoin, I don't want to say the sky's the limit, but 12,000, 14, 13,000, 14,000. These are next levels that are just going to be conquered. Once Bitcoin breaks this like 10.5K area of resistance of where it's at right now, which again, I think it's winding up to do, even if it comes down to something like this, once it breaks this level, I think 12 to 13K is just next. And that's just what I think is going to happen. A $2,000 climb, it could happen in a single day. Now, I'm not trying to incite any kind of FOMO, but I want people to understand that once this wall breaks, I think it's going to be like not necessarily parabolic, but it's going to be a volatile move to the upside once this 10.5K wall breaks on Bitcoin. It's going to be one of those instances where when it breaks, you're not going to be asking yourself, did it break? Did it not break? I think you're going to see it and go, okay, well, it broke. So let's talk about this MACD just a little bit before I go back to the candle chart of Bitcoin and explain everything else. But when I'm looking at this candle chart, again, or not this candle chart, this MACD chart, I'm seeing the exact same thing of what I was trying to explain with the oscillators earlier. We're seeing these guys suppressed. We've again been seeing this pinching towards the downside, and I think that we are going to ultimately just bottom out here, and then you're going to see an explosion like we have in the past when we've seen this exact same thing happen, where we're squeezing, holding this relative level. Now, I guess this was a little bit of a different scenario because this is when Bitcoin tanked like thousands of dollars from what previously happened. But then, of course, we see the explosion towards the upside. And I think that's exactly what we're getting ready for right here. I think we are very clearly bottoming out, lower swing high, or higher swing low, higher swing low, higher swing low. And I think we're getting ready for the next move where we could see our oscillators back at these levels at like 260 pretty easily. Now, this is the 4-hour chart, so take that with what you will, but I also see that the volume is very clearly squeezing over here. If you guys can see my volume chart down here, it's really, really small. I wish I could make it bigger, but the volume is squeezing over here, and when this happens, take note. I've made a video on this 1,000 times before for the past couple of years. I've been explaining when the volume squeezes like this, guys, we are getting ready for a big move. Now, I'm not promising that it's going to go this way. I'm not promising that it's going to go that way. But, one thing's for sure, when the volume squeezes like this, it is getting ready for a big move. And I do think that that big move is going to be towards the upside of Bitcoin. Ultimately, in the coming months here, I think that it's going to be self-explanatory. So when I'm looking at this and when I'm trying to understand this from a macros perspective, I'm seeing things start rounding out. I'm seeing that it's at multiple higher swing lows. I saw that it had a 100 retracement and buyback on an attempt to the swing low to the downside. I'm viewing Bitcoin right now and saying, okay, this thing looks like it's been suppressed, and it looks like it's, in the next 12, 24 months at most, this is going to have enough and it's going to be done. I mean, Bitcoin has been on a tear this year, needless to say. I mean, yes, it's been on a roller coaster of a ride to the up and the downside, but I think that we are seeing this definitely start squeezing more towards the upside over here, and I think it's only a matter of time before that 10.5K area of resistance breaks on Bitcoin, and we'll have to see what happens after that. I'm not saying 100K, I'm not saying 200 or 300K or anything like that on Bitcoin, but I'm saying within this relative range of 10 to 20K, that's where I see Bitcoin just going on a tear to. Now I really think that we could see ourselves go all the way up to like 14, 15K before we hit any other kind of resistance and do something like this. So, yes, we could bottom out like this guy, come up. We're going to retest this area over in here, and then we're going to probably see some rejection. If we don't see rejection in here, I mean, anywhere between 14 and 20K, there's very, very little resistance technologically on Bitcoin. So when I'm looking at this at a candle chart, very, very little resistance. And we'll have to see if we can tear through that. That's a big if in and of itself, but the area that I'm focusing on is this 14 to 10.5K area. I think that once Bitcoin breaks through this little box that it's in right now, and I guess that's kind of the way that you can picture this, is that Bitcoin's in a box right here. Once it breaks through this box, it has its next box right in here. And then once it breaks through this box, it has its next box right in here. And those are going to be kind of the areas that I see Bitcoin ranging in, bouncing in, and I guess playing in between over the next, who knows how many months or even the coming years. So I hope you guys did enjoy the video. I know that was a mouthful and a lot of information, but if you guys found it helpful, share the video, drop a like, drop a comment. If you guys have any questions, I'd love to be able to answer those in the comment section down below. So if you guys did enjoy, definitely do one of those things, and I will see you guys in the next video.